Landkreuzer P-1000 Rath. The Landkreuzer P-1000 Rath was one of the most extreme tank concepts ever proposed. Designed in Germany during World War II, it was envisioned as a gigantic armored vehicle weighing around 1,000 tons. The machine would have been larger than many naval vessels of its time. Plans included massive naval guns mounted on top, along with multiple defensive weapons positioned around the hull. Its enormous size was intended to make it nearly unstoppable on the battlefield. However, the project faced serious practical problems. Moving such a heavy vehicle across bridges, roads, and rough terrain would have been extremely difficult. Engineers eventually concluded that the concept was simply too large to be useful. Although it was never built, the Rat remains one of the most famous examples of military engineering pushed beyond realistic limits. Maus. The Maus was the heaviest tank ever actually constructed. Developed by Germany near the end of World War II, it weighed almost 200 tons. The tank featured extremely thick armor designed to resist nearly every anti-tank weapon available at the time. Its powerful main gun was capable of engaging enemy armor at long distances. Despite its impressive protection, the Maus suffered from severe mobility problems. Its massive weight made transportation difficult and prevented it from crossing most bridges. Fuel consumption was also extremely high. Only a few prototypes were completed before the war ended. The project demonstrated that increasing armor and firepower indefinitely could create serious operational disadvantages. Today, the Maus remains one of the most recognizable super-heavy tanks ever produced. Tsar Tank. The Tsar Tank was one of the strangest armored vehicles ever designed. Built in Imperial Russia during the First World War, it looked more like a giant tricycle than a conventional tank. Its most distinctive feature was a pair of enormous front wheels several meters tall. Engineers believed these giant wheels would allow the vehicle to roll over trenches and battlefield obstacles. A much smaller wheel supported the rear section of the machine. During testing, the rear wheel repeatedly became stuck in soft ground. As a result, the vehicle could not perform as intended. The unusual design attracted significant attention but failed to solve practical battlefield problems. Only a prototype was completed. Although unsuccessful, the Tsar Tank remains one of the most visually unusual armored vehicle experiments in military history. A-39 Tortoise. The A-39 Tortoise was a British heavy assault tank developed during World War II. Unlike most tanks, it was designed primarily to destroy heavily fortified defensive positions. Its huge armored body carried a powerful gun mounted directly into the front structure rather than inside a rotating turret. This gave the vehicle a distinctive appearance. The Tortoise featured exceptionally thick armor that provided strong protection against enemy fire. However, its enormous weight reduced speed and maneuverability. The vehicle was intended for slow advances against fortified enemy lines rather than fast battlefield movement. Although several prototypes were built, the war ended before it entered active service. Even so, the Tortoise demonstrated Britain's interest in specialized armored vehicles designed for specific combat roles. Object 279. The Object 279 was a highly unusual Soviet experimental tank developed during the Cold War. Its most distinctive feature was a 4-track suspension system instead of the traditional 2 tracks used on most tanks. Engineers hoped this arrangement would improve stability and reduce ground pressure. The tank also featured a rounded hull shape unlike almost any other armored vehicle. This design was intended to improve protection against blast effects and armor-piercing weapons. Object 279 was developed at a time when nuclear warfare was a major concern. Its structure was specifically designed to survive shockwaves from nearby nuclear explosions. Despite impressive engineering, the project never entered mass production. Today, it remains one of the most unique tank designs ever created. M50 Ontus. The M50 Ontus was a highly unusual American armored vehicle introduced during the Cold War. Rather than relying on a single large cannon, it carried 6 recoilless rifles mounted on the front. This gave the vehicle an appearance unlike any conventional tank. The Ontus was designed to destroy enemy armor using multiple powerful anti-tank weapons. Its compact size allowed it to move quickly and operate in areas where larger tanks struggled. The vehicle saw combat during the Vietnam War. Although originally intended for anti-tank operations, it often provided direct fire support against infantry positions. Reloading the weapons required crew members to leave the vehicle. Despite its limitations, the Ontus demonstrated a unique approach to battlefield firepower. Bob Semple Tank. The Bob Semple tank is often remembered as one of the most unusual tanks ever built. Developed in New Zealand during World War II, it was created under difficult circumstances when modern armored vehicles were unavailable. Engineers built the tank using a modified agricultural tractor as the foundation. Corrugated metal armor surrounded the vehicle. Several machine guns were installed for defense. The result looked more like an armored farm machine than a military vehicle. Although the design attracted criticism for its appearance and limited combat capability, it represented a serious effort to improve national defense during a period of uncertainty. Only a few examples were completed. The Bob Semple tank remains a fascinating example of improvisation under wartime pressure. Kugelpanzer. The Kugelpanzer was one of the most mysterious armored vehicles ever discovered. Built in Germany during World War II, it featured a nearly spherical shape unlike any conventional tank. The vehicle moved using two large wheels that formed most of its body. A small wheel at the rear helped maintain balance. Very little information survives regarding its intended purpose. Some historians believe it may have been designed for reconnaissance. Others suggest it was meant for communication or observation duties. Only one known example survives today. Its strange appearance continues to generate debate among military historians. The Kugelpanzer remains one of the most unusual armored vehicle designs ever produced. Churchill Crocodile. The Churchill Crocodile was a British tank that combined conventional armor with an unusual secondary weapon. Based on the Churchill tank platform, it carried a powerful flamethrower system connected to a fuel trailer pulled behind the vehicle. This configuration allowed operators to project flames over considerable distances. The weapon was particularly effective against bunkers and fortified positions. Enemy troops often feared the Crocodile because of its psychological impact. Despite carrying a flamethrower, the vehicle retained its main gun and normal combat capabilities. The design proved highly effective during Allied operations in Europe. Its combination of heavy armor and specialized weaponry made it one of the most distinctive tanks of World War II. TOG-2. The TOG-2 was an unusual British tank developed during World War II. Its design reflected battlefield ideas from the First World War rather than modern armored warfare. The vehicle featured an extremely long hull intended to cross wide trenches. Large tracks extended around much of the body. By the time the prototype was completed, tank warfare had evolved significantly. Faster and more mobile vehicles were becoming the standard. As a result, the TOG-2 appeared outdated despite its advanced engineering. Only one prototype was built. Today, it remains a fascinating example of how military planners sometimes prepare for the next war using lessons from the previous one. Stridsvagn 103. The Stridsvagn 103 was a unique Swedish tank unlike almost any other main battle tank. Instead of using a rotating turret, the main gun was fixed directly into the hull. To aim the weapon, the entire vehicle had to move or adjust its suspension system. This unusual approach allowed engineers to create a lower profile. The tank became harder to detect and target on the battlefield. Advanced suspension systems provided precise control over gun elevation. The design emphasized defensive warfare and ambush tactics. Although unconventional, the Stridsvagn 103 served successfully for many years. It remains one of the most innovative tank designs ever placed into operational service. Flying Tank A-40. The Flying Tank A-40 was one of the most ambitious military experiments ever attempted. Developed by the Soviet Union during World War II, it involved attaching large wings and a tail section to a light tank. The idea was to tow the vehicle behind an aircraft. After release, the tank would glide toward the battlefield. Once landed, the wings could be removed and the tank could immediately enter combat. Testing showed that the concept was technically possible. However, available aircraft lacked sufficient power to tow the heavy vehicle effectively. The project was eventually abandoned. Even so, the flying tank remains one of the most imaginative armored vehicle concepts ever explored.